The Israelites are a people stiff of neck. They are a stiff-necked people. Even from the beginning of Moses and Aaron's leadership, we see this demonstrated. Moses and Aaron were given the ability to perform signs and wonders in order to verify that they were representing Elohim. And Elohim told them that he was going to bring them out of their affliction, out of their servitude, and bring them into the land of Canaan, as he had already promised. And the people believed at first. But as soon as Pharaoh did not immediately heed that request, they began to doubt Moses and Aaron's leadership, and they doubted that they were even representing Elohim. Of course, as the plagues went on, as the signs and wonders continued, eventually they came to recognize that, Elohim is bringing us out of here. And they saw that as they were actually being brought out on the night of the Passover. But as soon as they saw Pharaoh's army approaching, they began to fear greatly once again. They began to doubt. But as we know, they crossed over the sea, and Pharaoh's army was vanquished by the sea. And at that point, they had very strong belief in Elohim. But it did not take long for their expectations, their personal expectations they had built up, to be violated once again, for difficulty to arise, for something unexpected to come about, such as the hunger or the thirst in the wilderness, and to let that lead them into doubting and into rebelling. Whenever I was younger, I heard this story, and I heard about how the Israelites were a stiff-necked people. And the teacher that was telling us this seemed to portray it as if it was a unique case. That these Israelites, they were just so ridiculous in their behavior, they were so foolish, that people that have the level of mental ascension and the level of belief that we supposedly have today, that they would not go that direction. That the Israelites were just being totally ridiculous in their behavior. The thing is, we are still Israelites. As I began to recognize the validity of the Torah, and as I began to realize that Elohim wants us to love him and to serve him through following what he has commanded, I thought this was important enough to begin sharing with other people. Some of the people did listen. They did recognize that. Some of the people did not listen. And some people listened and recognized, but then they did not act upon it. But even in regard to those of us that accepted it, believed it, and sought after it, even in regard to us that we thought we were following after it and seeking to learn it, still things went on that should not have gone on. And things go on that should not go on. Things like letting competing desires interfere with our desire to follow after the commands. Things like finding ways to rationalize our behavior as being acceptable, even when on some level we recognize that it's questionable or we recognize some issue. And finding ways to dismiss new learnings, either because they're not in conforming to the way that we've already begun to do, or they're somehow uncomfortable to us. We are still Israelites. We are still a people stiff of neck. We are commanded to circumcise our hearts. We are commanded to be stiff-necked no longer. This is information that is not just useful for them. This is information that's not just good for our ancestors. This is information that we need to heed. These are commands that are relevant to us today. Almost all of us, in some way or another, we believe that we are on the side of good. There is a lot of information out there in the world. There are a lot of things that go on around us. And the fact is that we have very incomplete information about what's going on. And because of this complexity of the world and the complexity of what we are doing and what we are witnessing, our mind has this part of it that serves as an interpreter function, that interprets this vast amount of information that's going on around us, all of these things going on around us. It interprets it into some type of usable form. It presents us with, effectively, a movie of what's going on, a story, a plot. And all of us have these individual movies going on for us. And in those movies, for almost all of us, in some way or another, we appear as on the side of good. We are the good guy in the movie. The thing is, if we came to the Torah from a previous belief system, whether we simply believed in nothing in some sense, or whether we came out of rabbinic Judaism or Christianity, at some point, we were not following the Torah, and we were probably not believing according to it either. We may have even been believing in some other Elohim for that matter. The thing is that if we perceive ourselves as the good guy, there has to be some kind of explanation for that and explanation for other things as well. And so for some of us have the idea that, well, yeah, we did change our behavior basically, but we were always in the right. We were always on the right track. Is that really the case, though? If we were believing in another Elohim, were we really on the right track? Now, it's true that if we got the information about the Torah and the information about the Elohim of Israel, and we realized this to be valid, and we accepted it as true, and we sought to follow after it, that yes, that is getting onto the right track. But if we still perceive ourselves as having been the good guy all along, we might let that excuse certain behaviors, and we may even bring those behaviors into our current observance. And so we might rationalize doing things like following some other Elohim's pagan celebration because our family observes it, for example. And we might find some alternative way to describe it that makes it sound less bad, that makes it sound acceptable. And we might say something like, well, I'm just meeting with my family. What could be wrong with that? And so we incorporate these things that we were doing before, partially because we can't accept that maybe we were in the wrong. Now, maybe we're not this bad. There are other things as well that we get involved with. For example, there may be some situation where we perceive that we have no choice. We have no choice but to break the Sabbath. We have no choice but to violate the Torah. Instead of recognizing what we're doing, a lot of times we'll find some way to interpret it such that we had no choice. It was really the circumstances that caused it. We personally basically did nothing. The circumstances just caused that decision to be pre-made for us, that we really did not have any input in that. Or did we? And we can be in some situation where we're presented with new information about the Torah, new information that is uncomfortable to us, that is different from what we are currently doing. And we might think, well, this is kind of uncomfortable to see or hear, and then, oh, there's something I disagree with. Obviously, this person is just wrong. Obviously, I don't need to listen to all that. Or we may be in some situation where we are doing something wrong, whether we realize it or not, and someone might call us out on it. Someone might do what they are commanded to do according to Leviticus 19:17. They might see that and correct us. And we might think, oh, that person is just being a jerk. They're just being mean. They're just mad at me for some reason. Why are they doing that? So that way we don't have to listen to it. That way we don't have to recognize its validity. We are still a people stiff of neck. We are still Israelites. We are still stiff of neck. We are commanded to circumcise our hearts. This is not just information that was good for them at the time. We still have that inclination towards stiffness of neck. We need to return to his ways, and we need to circumcise our hearts. We need to seek to conform our ways to what he expects and be mindful of that inclination, that stiffness of neck.